Heated shenanigans, working stiffer than mannequins. Vader time like a mannequin, mega powers, I'm savage and peep the babbling. Got him shook off the verbal acumen. I'm the main event, meaning nobody coming after him. The topics we be tackling, ankle locking and tapping them. I hate seafood, but I might throw the Boston crab on him. You know sometimes it gets heated. You know sometimes it gets heated.
Welcome back, everybody, to Heated Shenanigans podcast. Very happy to have you joining us, whether you're watching or listening. Thank you for being here with us. As you can see, my guest today is former WWE superstar Eugene Nick Dinsmore.
Hi, can you hear me? Is this thing on?
We can hear you.
Okay. Where did you get the name Heated Shenanigans?
Honestly, it was just something that came to me one day. I was struggling to find a name for the podcast, and then Shenanigans is always a good word. A lot of people like that, and
yes,
we get hot topics on here, so we kind of just merged them together.
I like the name. Let's get hot into it.
Excellent. Well, Eugene, what have you been up to recently?
Oh, I've been searching for Bigfoot. I've been trying to catch aliens, man. I've been trying to come up with all these conspiracy theories that I can figure out. But mainly, I'm trying to move myself down to Florida. My mother lives in Florida, and she's been kind of in and out of the hospital a little bit. She's doing great right now, but I want to be a little bit closer to her. So I'm down here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and kind of relocating down here. And hopefully I can get some wrestling bookings out of the great state of Florida.
Well, I want to say I hope your mom improves and makes a full recovery.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Well, Eugene, how many people were introduced to you and remember you was from WWE as Eric Bischoff's nephew? And it's well documented how you became Eugene in WWE. But I wanted to go over, were there any people within WWE that had an issue with the character Eugene?
I think there were some media outlets when Eugene was first on TV that said, what is WWE doing now? Not necessarily me or the specific character, but what's WWE doing now? But then once Eugene won his first match and then people started to realize, oh, this is an underdog story of, a dreamer achieving his dreams, then it took off. And then everybody came up to me and wanted to wrestle with me. They wanted to work with me. So it just took off.
Like a meteor, you just shot straight to the top, and you got to work programs with The Rock, with Triple H, all these prominent main eventers. Were there any wrestlers in the back that kind of took exception to such a quick start for your career?
Not really, because at that point, half of the locker room had gone through OVW to make it to WWE. And I was a half trainer, but working for OVW, and I knew all these guys. A lot of them came there with no experience or very little experience, so I helped them out. And they were all like wanting me to make it to the main roster. And it was a slow process for me to finally develop a character. But when I did, it took off and everybody was really happy for me. Or at least I didn't hear anybody, say anything bad about me.
At least to your face.
Yeah, not to my face.
Well, you got paired with William Regal for a short bit of time, and you had a lot of success working with William Regal. What was that opportunity like to learn from somebody as established as William Regal?
Well, I had always been a huge fan of William Regal, watching him in WCW as Lord Steven Regal. And then one of my trainers was the Hustler Rip Rogers, and him and Regal were really good friends. They wrestled together, and I think they lived together in Germany. So to be paired with him was, a dream for me. I got to ride with him. I got to pick his brain. But for a character, it was the perfect odd coupling. I mean, Regal was established and has such great timing for comedy or drama or really anything. And it was so perfect for me. The character was still kind of new, so if there was ever a time where I got, stuck on something, he was right there to pick it up.
Let's say William Regal, one of the all-time greats in professional wrestling, and the pairing, again, the odd couple that worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, Eugene, is over the course of your career here in professional wrestling, what would you say is your favorite story you have seen told in a ring? Not necessarily a match, but the psychology of what's going on in the ring.
I can't really think off the top of my head, but the one that really, the last time that WWE really hooked me was when, it's been a while, but it's when it was Jerry Lawler's birthday. And Miz was the champion, and he had the ladder match against Miz. and Miz had the other guy. I can't remember the other guy's name that was with him, but he knocked both of them out of the ring, and he's climbing the ladder. And I thought Jerry Lawler's not going to win the world title, and he almost had it. And that's when Michael Cole pushed him off and set up their match for WrestleMania. And that was the last time that I was on the edge of my feet like a kid, going, "Oh my God, King's going to do it." Because growing up in Louisville, I watched Jerry Lawler in USWA, so I'm a pretty big Jerry the King Lawler fan, and that was the last time that I remember really. But then I think the Daniel Bryan story building up to WrestleMania 30 was really good. The people all in it and everybody in the ring doing the yes and wrestling Triple H in the for opening match, and then against Batista and Randy in the main event. That was really good.
I would have to agree, especially with the Jerry Lawler thing. Jerry has been a staple in the Memphis area and, well, in the southern part, wrestling as a whole. But it's a shame that he never got the world title.
Well, what you going to do, brother?
But hey, his career turned out perfect even without it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of careers again here, I did want to ask, throughout your time in OVW, WWE, what part of your career, what year do you think you developed the most growth for your career, and what led to that growth?
What led to it was definitely experience. The time period was probably maybe 98 to 06 or 05. When I injured my knee, it set me back a little bit in WWE. But from OVW about 98 really, because I started wrestling in 96 and I had about 3 years experience, and then the light bulb was starting to come off. But at some point, I don't remember the specific day, it might have been 2000-ish, when really all of a sudden I was like, okay, now I'm comfortable. Now I don't have to think about anything else. I can just be in the match. And it became so much easier.
Let's say coming up through that OVW training area, so many greats and legends, Hall of Famers came out of OVW. Al Snow has had tremendous success lately with OVW, the docuseries by BBC. I was wondering how you felt looking back at OVW and seeing where it was then versus where it is now.
I'm just proud that I was a part of it. I mean, people say I've held the heavyweight title 10 times, but really, who's counting? But I just enjoy being like kind of on the first end of it and helping build it. We started in a real small building and moved to a bigger building, and then they moved to the building they're in now, and being able to help all the talent that first came through, Batista and Cena and Randy and Brock Lesnar, Victoria, talent like that, and just it's dear to my heart.
Let's say when you got the call to come up to WWE, how long had you been in OVW at that point?
So I started OVW in 96. They partnered with WWE in, I think, late 98 or 99. I got hired by WWE in late 99. And I started on TV in 2004, April 2004. So it was, I say I'm a 10-year overnight success.
Give or take a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I had heard, I want to get your take on it, because again, you hear so many things online and everybody has an opinion. There was a story, and I'd like you to confirm this, that you were coming up the aisleway, and it might have been after match, this might have been at a house show, and a fan had said something to you that you deserve better, and you had stopped, looked at them, and said, I know.
I don't remember that. Okay. It very well could have happened, but I don't remember that.
Let's say, at any point, did you get tired of the Eugene character and maybe want to try a different route in WWE?
No way, man. That was making me money. At that time, Hurricane was the only kids character that they had, and the brands were split. When I started, Hurricane was on the brand, but I think then he switched off to going back to Shane Helms, or he went to SmackDown, and I was the only real kids character. And I was action figures and teddy bears and T-shirts. Yay! It was where I wanted to be.
Let's say, had you not suffered that knee injury in that tag team match with William Regal, what plans got changed because of that? Was there anything that was coming that we did not get to see?
I assumed there would have been a turn angle when Regal finally turned on Eugene. That never happened. And then there was a movie written for Eugene that I didn't get to star in, but Big Show ended up starring in it. The movie Knucklehead was written for Eugene. Because if you watch it, I've never seen it, but I've seen like the previews of it and seen kind of some of the pictures. It was all antics that Eugene would have done.
Wow, I didn't know that you were originally slated for that film.
Because the writer Brian Gerwick, he wrote a lot of the Rock stuff. Might have written all the Rock stuff, but he could write for Eugene, and that was the reason Eugene had the most of his success, was because I had a writer that could write for the character, and he just, he's the one that rocketed Eugene to the top.
Man, that looking at where you were on the roster, and you, by all accounts, were in the main event picture. You were working high profile angles. Did the office ever consider making an attempt to put the world title on you at that time?
I thought about coming up with a legend where they were going to do it, and something happened and it didn't happen, but no, not that I knew of.
Let's say just your popularity at that time was just incredible.
But, not to say if it would have kept going, it very well could have happened. I mean, who knows?
Looking back, like just the character Eugene was so different from everything. I think that's what was so successful. You were so different. And when you came on the TV, you stood out. You were not to make light of the word, but you were a special talent.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because at the time, it was post NWO, post Stone Cold Steve Austin, but everybody still wanted to be a cool, strong heel. And I wanted to be the complete opposite. I wanted to be a comedy character, because they only had, they didn't have really many comedy characters. I mean, Hurricane, but he was still kind of not as comedy as Eugene, I feel like, and just a kid's character, and just, something completely different, because they didn't have that. And I was targeted to an audience that wasn't being represented or wasn't being targeted to.
Well, so I remember you had mentioned in a prior interview that Vince had wanted to get back to more character-based wrestlers.
Yeah, at the time, I had an interview with Vince, and Rip Rogers had given me the idea for the character maybe a year and a half earlier, and it just kind of toiled in the back of my head. I ended up, in a meeting with Vince McMahon. Vince goes, "I want to get back to character-based wrestling," and I just kind of spit it out. And he's kind of mulling it over, and that's when Stone Cold Steve Austin walks in. He'd come back to do a Saturday Night's Main Event taping, I think. And Vince goes, "Steve, you ever seen this guy wrestle?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Well, Nightmare Danny Davis trained me," because I knew Danny and Steve became friends in Texas. And then Austin just kind of looks at me and goes, "Well, he's probably one of the best." And it was like that vote of confidence that, Vince goes, "All right, great, we'll start on Monday." We didn't actually start the next Monday, but it was about a month later that they kind of figured out how they wanted to break Eugene in. Because at first, I did like a, remember the old, coming soon videos? They would I did a couple of those, and I guess they didn't like them, so they just, had me just, all right. Yeah, it was like April, I can't remember what day, 23rd, or the 3rd or 4th week of April was when Eugene debuted. Could have been earlier. It was in April, but it could have been earlier in the month.
Fair enough.
It might have been April 5th. It was in Houston. I remember it was in Houston.
So over the course of your career, Eugene, what would you say is one lesson that you learned that you didn't expect to learn, and how did it change your career afterwards?
Well, I don't know that it necessarily changed my career, but there were little, like, I learned the majority of my lessons before I ever made it to the main roster. Because that's, I think that's why I succeeded so much, is because I had made all the mistakes and learned from them, so that when I got up to WWE, they would give me a little bit and I would succeed, and they'd give me a little more and I would succeed. And it was just because I had, failed so many times before that I'd learned from those. But little things like, I should have changed my wrestling gear more often, because then you get more action figures, which means you get more money, because people are going to buy the new action figures. And I didn't really think of that until I came out with the Superman action outfit that was much later, 2 years into my career. But I should have, every 2 months or so, because if you look at Jeff Hardy changes his gear about every 2 months, and then they make the new Jeff Hardy action figure, and all the kids go out and buy it. So that was one thing that I wish I would have done a little more, and maybe a little bit more networking. Like early in my career, I did maybe 13 shots for WCW, and I wish I would have networked more with the office, because apparently it was Terry Taylor that was calling me in. When Terry Taylor got released by WCW, he went to WWE, and he eventually hired me there, but I was kind of in limbo for a year because he wasn't calling me in because he wasn't working there. But the thing was, I was still getting booked, but nobody in WCW's office was letting me know. But if I would have made contact with somebody, I could have, been working WCW toward the tail end. I probably would have been in the New Blood Rising angle, and then I probably would have been in the Invasion angle. So, it might not have been Eugene, but I would have been there, earlier, maybe longer, maybe differently. I don't know.
We're talking about an entire different view of your career with that taking place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Because I wrestled WWE in 98, and then January of 99 was the last event I did. And then Terry Taylor got released at some point, and I didn't get hired by WWE until December of 99. So the whole year of 99, I didn't wrestle for WWE. I did some dark matches and some extra work for WWE, but WCW was then kind of spiraling down, I think.
Let's say I know being a part of WWE, you probably had so many different types of merchandising thrown at you or run by you. But there was one thing in WWE that stood out for a lot of people that I made very good friends with, and that is WWE Raw Deal, the card game. Had you heard anything about that?
I've probably signed them if I was on it, but I didn't play the game. I don't know how to play it. I don't know the gist of it.
Well, it's just a trading card game. However, each character had abilities.
Yeah, you get so many for the card played or something.
Your ability was so obnoxiously powerful. They spent, I'm not kidding you, 2 years trying to figure out how to make you fair to play. It was one of those, like, at the major tournaments, because, like, they were giving, when the game was in circulation, first prize was a ticket to WrestleMania. That was a big prize.
Wow.
And you were one of the most sought after decks to play with and obnoxiously powerful.
Yeah, because at the beginning of the character's run, Eugene had incredible strength. Eugene was known to have, incredible strength, and not that I didn't like that, but it's kind of hard to do that in every match. Because then why don't I just win every match if I've got this incredible strength? How am I going to have incredible strength and then get beat up? For me, it didn't feel right. So, I mean, it started that way, and I kind of got away from it. That's probably my inability as a performer to really put that in the right place. But at the very beginning, it was JR went, "Oh my God, Eugene's got this incredible strength." I'd do the handshake, and people would scream.
Say it's very reminiscent of Hulk Hogan hulking up.
Well, I took that from Hulk, and Jerry Lawler did it too. That's where I got that.
If you had to compare your career to either a TV show or a movie, which would it be and why?
I'd like to say Deep Throat, but I don't think that really goes well with the character. I don't know, because I mean, Eugene was a kid's character. He was a child, mind like a child. He was playful. He was comedy, but paired with Regal, I feel like Eugene pairing with Regal brought out the humanity in William Regal for the first time. And it really expanded his character to be a little bit more passionate about people, because he'd always been, the evil villain or a little bit of comedy, but he was finally caring for someone else. I can't really think of a movie offhand or a TV show, but I mean, maybe like The Odd Couple or something like that. But
That's
I don't
fair.
know. Tom and Jerry, I don't know.
Well, it's a good. I'm glad you brought up the humanity for William Regal's character, because there was an episode of Raw where you had been taken out by Triple H, and William Regal comes to your aid, and it gave you a caring father side of William Regal, which up until then no one got out of William Regal.
Yep. I legitimately suffered a concussion when Evolution turned on Eugene, and I was glassy eyed, and I don't know if he was acting or if he felt that way, but he had tears in his eyes. And then, and I don't know if it was after that one or the certain point where, he comes back and cuts the promo on Triple H, and, I let him in the building and really had fire in his voice because he cared for Eugene. I mean, that was great stuff. And Regal wrote that promo. Regal came up with that idea. He pitched that, and it was great.
Do you think the character Eugene would work in today's wrestling, like if it was just introduced?
Well, here's the thing. WWE has the ability to take anything they want and make it right. They took the mask off Kane when I thought there's no way they could do this. you know, and they take characters and situations and they have the ability to, you know, present it the right way where everybody goes, oh, okay, I get it. It's not offensive. It's entertainment that might be edgy. And I think if they wanted to do it, they could do it because they have some of the best writers in the world. And I think that's what made them different than WCW, because WCW, I don't know, wasn't open-minded or didn't have the creative ability, although they were great. It was just a little bit different. And I mean, if they really wanted to, they could. So I guess never say never, brother.
Let's say it takes a special writing team, as you had mentioned, to write for a character like that, because there's a very fine line of being horribly offensive and good loving underdog story.
And I think that's what they did. It was they never made fun of Eugene. Eugene, you know, he would come out on top and it would be funny, but everybody laughed at the heels. And I'll tell you this thing, I've gotten way more positive affirmation from people everywhere in the world than nobody's ever said you're doing something wrong. Maybe some troll on Twitter once or twice, but about 2 years ago, I was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee at an autograph signing. A boy came up, he was 20s, and he got the picture with Eugene and signed the autograph. And then he handed me his phone, and his phone was a text from his mother to me telling me that, you know, this kid has high functioning autism and he's always been the weird kid in school. And, you know, when Eugene came on TV, it was a really tough time in his life. He was 6th or 7th grade and he didn't have any friends. And the mom was, you know, working, a single mom, trying to, you know, 3 kids, trying to work 2 jobs and go to school. And it was Eugene. He would say, you know, because Eugene achieved, I know that I can. And now the kid's got like a great job. And I literally started crying. I couldn't finish it. So I had him text it to me. He and I are friends on Facebook. And I tried to read it on a podcast, started crying. So then about a year and a half ago on Bischoff's 83 Weeks podcast, he said he was ashamed that he was a part of the Eugene angle. But he called me right after and he said, hey, can you come on his other podcast, the Patreon podcast, I think, can you come on and we can talk about it? So sure. And I wasn't upset about it, but I came on there, but I texted him that text from that mother. And he started to read it and he started crying. And I think he really realized that Eugene was an inspiration. Eugene was good for you know, a select group of people, Americans worldwide, that aren't represented, that aren't written to. There's so many forces out there that are, you know, the only people that really disagreed with it had nobody in their life that had special abilities or anything. They thought it was offensive, but they have no clue. And the people that did, I've so many people. My younger brother, he loved you, you know, my sister, blah, 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 whatever. And I think it was a good character and it was well written.
And the thing is, like, the people that have a negative view on it, they're not getting the full story. They're not going back and watching everything in its entirety. They're cherry picking a moment that let's attack this. Let's not do research. It's just trolls.
The only time I was really attacked was when Linda was running for Senate and her opposition would take clips and say, you see what they're doing? Look what they're doing. And it was right when DX was challenging Vince and Shane, and Vince put my head in the toilet and poured the green paint on my head. And they're like, yo, this they've got this special guy on their roster and they're putting his head in the toilet. And again, you know, that's when I went on and I did one of the stand up for WWE videos. And that was the only time that we ever said Eugene was, you know, on TV, it was just Eugene special. But on the stand up is when we really came out and said, okay, he might have been, you know, disabled or mentally disabled or slow or whatever it is. But in my mind, it wasn't even that. It was just the mind of a child. How did I react to wrestling when I was a kid? I would get excited. Or how do kids react? I watch kids in the front row when the girls walk out, you know, they get a little embarrassed, you know, or the good guys come out and they're excited, or the bad guys come out and they get scared. And it was just that over amplification of how did I put it before? Like just naive joy, you know, just a kid like naive joy of just everything in the world. And that's how I kind of tried to channel it. Not that he was special or anything. It was just me being a kid in my head.
And it was one of the greatest things that ever came across WWE television.
Thank you. You know, I would love to be in the WWE Hall of Fame someday, but I really think first Doink the Clown should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And I got to be Doink the Clown 2 times, and I think everybody that, you know, wore the Doink the Clown makeup should be in the Hall of Fame. So maybe we can push for that first.
You could go in the same night. You could go in as Doink and then later go in as Eugene.
No, I got to have 2 nights, man. We got 2 nights. I was also a Conquistador, so we got to put them in between. Doink, Conquistador, Eugene.
The Doink. How many people that you know of were actually behind the Doink outfit?
I think there were 7. I mean, but if you count like Jericho did it, but it was like a trap. So I don't know if you count like a guy that does it there, but it was Matt Bourne, Steve Kern, Lombardi, Ray Apollo, myself. I believe that one of the headbangers did it. And then during the pandemic, there was either a pay-per-view, it might have been Mania, where they fought in the headquarters, and then someone came out as Doink. And I don't know who did that, but I think that's one of the newer talent. But I think it was just a one-off thing, but still.
I feel like WWE has to keep somebody on the roster that can fulfill the Doink outfit in case of an emergency.
They just have the outfit, and they got such a deep roster, they can put anybody in there. I mean, that's what happened to me. I went to do, it was the Vengeance 2002. I think it was Vengeance 2002. It was in Denver, and it was JBL's Barroom Brawl, and they sent Doink out, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's Brooklyn Brawler," and then they sent Brooklyn Brawler out, and everybody's like, "Oh my god!" But then they asked me, they said, "We want you to stay and then do SmackDown," and SmackDown was taped on Tuesday, so stayed for Tuesday, and they said, "We want you to wrestle Chris Benoit, and we want you to do 20 minutes on SmackDown." And I'm thinking in my head, Doink the Clown's a good character, but Benoit is like a main event guy, and Doink the Clown hadn't been on TV in 15, 20 years. And then they come back and they say, well, it might be 15 minutes. And then they come back, it might be 7 minutes. And then it was like 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and he just destroyed me, which is what it was supposed to be.
I
But
would have loved to have seen the reaction when they're saying Doink is going to go 20 minutes on TV.
well, the thing was I wrestled Benoit in Louisville at the Louisville Gardens. Nick Dinsmore did, and we did like 20 minutes in the Louisville Gardens, and I think the writers wanted to see that wrestling, but it wasn't the time for Doink to do that. At least I didn't think so.
Fair enough. Well, before we go ahead and wrap all this up here, Eugene, do you have anything coming up, any appearances or anything on social media that you would like to plug?
Well, my Twitter is the letter U, Gene Dinsmore, Dinsmore, and I like my YouTube channel, which is the Nick Dinsmore YouTube channel. Like I said, I'm basing myself out of the Sunshine State of Florida right now, so I feel like I moved to a new territory like they used to in the old days, and I'm getting booked around the area here. I've got some things going on, but anybody wants to book me, hit me up, and we'll figure it out. Eugene can come to your town.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Heated Shenanigans Podcast. I want to deeply thank my guest today, Eugene, for taking time from his day and schedule to join us. It was truly a pleasure. And
One more thing. The best part about being a WWE superstar is getting the action figure. And the best part about having your own action figure is you get to play with yourself in public.
that is a great way to end today's episode, guys.
Thank you.